This is The Download from Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Newton Shellicotty.
And I'm Gavin Gaddis.
The Download is brought to you by Podscribe. Find out more at podscribe.com.
This week, Olympic athletes go gold on social media, true crime's advertising opportunity, how data generates coverage, and Evergreen brand marketing pivots. Let's get started.
This Thursday, from Paul Hebert at Adweek, as the 2024 Paris Olympic and Paralympic Games wind down, the impact of the Games on the profiles of athletes becomes more apparent. While the Olympics remains a rare example of a mass media event, even that has become more fractured and personalized, with platforms like Peacock offering multiple live stream options of multiple events simultaneously. In pre-internet Olympics, audiences watched a given network's coverage. Now, audiences can filter for sports and athletes they care about the most. As a result, the social platforms of this year's athletes are undergoing more growth than usual while on the world stage. Instagram follower counts are jumping, and TikTok videos are pulling in millions of views. Social platform Dash Hudson, which has tracked engagement and growth of almost 200 athletes in Paris for the Olympic and Paralympic Games, attributes the organic performance to entertainment, authenticity, and community, making podcasting a natural option for athletes post-Paris who wish to maintain that connection and authenticity with their growing fan base.
This Wednesday, from Tom Webster at Sounds Profitable. True crime has performed well in podcasting for over a decade, yet the genre still has an advertising issue. Brands want to connect with audiences of true crime podcasts, but are averse to the brand unsafe topics discussed. Webster highlights research from Sounds Profitable's 2022 study Safe and Sound, which looked at audience perceptions in regards to podcasting and brand safety-related topics. One survey question asked respondents how they responded to the phrase, quote, "I like it when a brand supports my favorite true crime podcast," and, quote, only 9% of respondents responded negatively to the sentiment. A quote from Webster, quote, "Moreover, the content itself is often far less graphic or disturbing than many may assume. A significant portion of true crime podcasts more closely resemble police procedurals or detective stories, making them accessible to a broad audience. This misconception about the nature of true crime content has likely contributed to brands' hesitancy to engage with the genre," end quote. True crime podcasts represent a not common blend of audience engagement, brand loyalty, and societal impact, and advertisers would do well to reconsider blanket bans on the genre.
This Monday, media critic Eric Wemple published an op-ed in the Washington Post. The piece takes a look at the growing world of video podcasting from the perspective of a media critic with a background in covering cable news. Wemple opens with a recollection of the first ever live video broadcast of Don Imus's WFAN radio show on C-SPAN, analogous to the modern topical chat podcast. The piece sources podcast industry research numbers from Signal Hill Insights, Cumulus Media, and Triton Digital. It also features pull quotes from interviews with Pierre Bouvard of Cumulus Media / Westwood One and Steve McLendon, product lead of YouTube's podcasting arm. While an article about podcasting and a paper of record like WAPO on its own is nice, Wemple's op-ed is an example of what happens when an industry puts the effort into hyping itself up and showing data strong enough to empower coverage by journalists, regardless of their background in podcasting.
This Tuesday, from Christina Monlos at Digiday, companies like Nike, which previously focused strongly on performance marketing, are now shifting their focus to a balance of performance and brand storytelling. For Nike specifically, this means reinstituting a marketing division specifically for brand storytelling that had previously been dissolved. A quote from the article, quote, "Nike is far from alone in managing the difficult balance between performance and brand. There was a pendulum shift in marketing organizations to focus on performance, seemingly above all else, a few years ago. The rise of direct-to-consumer brands at the time, many of which were basically performance marketing brands, caught the attention of C-suite executives in major marketing organizations. The opportunity to truly track what was working and what wasn't, at least in terms of driving sales, and lean into that was all too tempting to budget-conscious marketing execs." End quote. As it becomes easier for consumers to communicate back at brands, building an image and maintaining it long-term is vital, something podcasting with legions of engaged audiences that are proven to think positively of brands that make their favorite programs possible could help with. Finally, it's time for our quick hits. These are articles that didn't quite make the cut for today's episode, but are still worth including in your weekend reading. This week, Building a Better Sales Pitch for Podcasting by Tom Webster. The recording of Tom's 45-minute free webinar is now available, featuring tips on how to pitch podcast advertising to brands and agencies. We've got the Podscape mid-year update. Sounds Profitable and Magellan AI have published the mid-year update to the Podscape, an infographic providing a top-down view of the podcasting industry. New analytics report raises new questions about the use of AI systems for brand safety by Marty Swant. The report alleges to have found ads with brand safety code on user-generated content sites like Tumblr and Fandom, including pages with racial slurs in the headlines and URLs. The headlines to be released on podcast platforms. The news recap of The Daily, which has become the most popular podcast on NYT Audio, is now available on open podcasting feeds. And finally, here's where Democrats and Republicans are putting their presidential ad dollars by Paul Hebert. With the Kamala Harris campaign spinning up late in the game, millions are being invested in social and digital campaigns in battleground states on both sides of the election, which could trickle down into podcasting.
And that was the download, brought to you by Sounds Profitable. I know we went through today's stories fast, so be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned right in your podcast listening app or on the download section of soundsprofitable.com. And thank you for sticking with us as we bring you the top stories you might have missed from the past week. I'm Newton Shuttlecotty.
And I'm Gavin Gaddis. Our producers are myself, Newton Shuttlecotty, Brian Barletta, and Tom Webster. Special thanks to Spreaker for hosting the download, and thanks to you for joining us. Robot?
Download complete.